So if I had about $50,000 or more in cryptocurrency and DeFi and I didn't really know what to do in this current market because it's crashing, I'm going to show you exactly what I would do in that situation and the strategy that I would implement to ensure that number one, I'm set up for the bull run, but number two, I am mitigating portfolio downside. So with that being said, first thing I want to talk about, if you are scared of the assets that you are currently invested into, you should not be in those assets. And what I mean by that is if you do not have confidence that these assets that you're in right now are going to do well over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and so on and so forth, basically to a point where you are going to see gains eventually, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, right? Whether it's 3 years from now. If you are not confident in those assets that you're currently in, you should get out of them. That's a good time to take losses. But if you're confident in these assets, then stop trying to trade the market. Just earn more assets and use that to build up your bag over time. But again, that doesn't mean that you have to sit on the sidelines, not earn any income, and put your entire portfolio at risk because, well, that's not the best idea. So I personally have allocations to stablecoins. I have allocations to stuff like Fartcoin to Sol, which on the front end might look like it's down $350, but well, guess what? I'm hedging this position over on Radium Perps, in which I started with $2,000 over here, and I'm currently up about $523, which means that I've been able to extract about $200 in yield strictly and do over 50% APR on this position without having market exposure. But then I do have my positions like Ethereum to Tau that's doing 200% APR. That's just profiting compared to holding the market, and it's accumulating more assets. Yes, prices are going down, but I'm accumulating more Taus, more Ethereums, and when prices start to go back up, not only am I going to make more in earnings, I'm going to make more when prices go back to my break even as opposed to being at a break even because I accumulated more assets on the way down. Same exact thing goes with Ethereum to Edge. This one doesn't have as good of a profit versus hodl ratio, but it's been holding up in this crazy volatility that we've been seeing. I also have my sold to render pool over here, which is down 4.2K, 4.25K. It's profiting 1.23K compared to hodl, and it has 1.32K in total earnings. So it has $100 of divergence loss, right? So my point here being is there's two different strategies. There's the asset accumulation and there's the stability strategy. Right now I'm running both, right? So my allocations come out to about $17,000 over here on the Solana network, a total of roughly $24,000, $23,000 over here on the Ethereum network, which is a total of $40,000. And then I also have a total of $25,000 across stability strategies. So when you do the math, about 40% of my portfolio is allocated to stability strategies. The other 60% of my portfolio is allocated to market exposure, high yield positions that are accumulating me more assets. Now, that being said, I also have allocations to crypto that I'm just holding. I have about 10 grand in my wallet. Over on Aave, I have about $37,000. And then I have like here and there some $1,000 here, $1,000 there. So realistically, I have another $50,000 of hodls, which means that effectively only 21% of my portfolio is allocated to stability strategies. The rest is focused on either accumulating more assets or assets that I've already accumulated that I am hodling, waiting for them to go up in price. But that doesn't mean that all those hodls, $50,000, has to go to waste. I can borrow against that. So you can see I'm borrowing $13,000 of USDC right here. I can increase that borrow and put that into stability strategies. And while I'm waiting for my Bitcoin to go up, my Ethereum to go up, my Link, my Aave, all these other assets, I can be using that $13,000 to produce more income. And then I can use that income to pay down this borrow so I don't have to worry about liquidations. I don't have to worry about interest. The interest is actually going down over time because I am paying down this borrow. And eventually I'm going to have an asset that was free, an asset that's paid off, if that makes sense. And that is the asset where I'm running stability strategies that's consistently generating income. And I can use that asset, that cash flow, to inject into more hodls, to inject into more asset accumulation strategies, or hey, even inject into more stability strategies. However, I choose to balance out my portfolio. So I want to talk from a high level about asset accumulation strategies, how we find them, and correlated liquidity pools, as well as stability strategies, how we find them, how we manage them, and so on and so forth. So let's dive in. So first things first, we're going to start on this tool. It's called Correlation on Demand. The URL is also up here. Just some random tool that I found on Google. Anyways, over here, we're going to select a specific asset that we want to benchmark to. So usually I'm selecting either Ethereum or I'm selecting Solana. Right now, I've always been big on Ethereum, not too big of a fan of Solana. I think it's very, very volatile. but I'm going to select Ethereum. And what that's going to allow me to do is, number one, see this price of Ethereum over time, which is pretty great. But also if I scroll down, it's going to show me everything within the top 250 from CoinGecko that is correlated to Ethereum, if that makes sense. So for example, there's Lido staked Ether. Obviously that has a 1-to-1 correlation with Ethereum. But what this is doing is actually showing us stuff that we can pair with Ethereum, which is why this tool is really amazing. Now, as far as my time frame goes, I'm going to select 30 days. And the simple reason why is because I want to look at stuff that has tracked Ethereum over the past 30 days, basically. So just like that, we have that list refreshed and it has the correlation ratios. I'm going to come to a point where I'm not looking at the pegged versions of Ethereum. So I kind of want to just filter out that stuff and scroll down until we're at correlations of roughly 0.95 or so. So you can see here, there's stuff like CLBTC, which is a derivative of Bitcoin. There's ZK, which is ZK Sync token. It's pretty correlated to Ethereum. We have stuff like 1inch token. We have stuff like GRT that's highly correlated to Ethereum. Injective, Render, all have solid correlations. Ideally, we're looking for stuff that's higher than 0.5. And once we found some assets, like I just found GRT, Render, Injective, obviously I want to go do due diligence. If I've already heard of them and I already know that these are solid assets, no need to conduct the due diligence because I've already done it, right? But we can bring those assets over into Metrics Finance and we can bring those assets over into DeFi Llama. So if we just go over to Discover and if we select Uniswap on the Ethereum network, we could even select some Arbitrum over here, basically select our exchanges and networks. We could say, okay, I want to look at Ethereum paired with GRT, Render, Injective, right? And I can pull these types of liquidity pools up over on Metrics Finance. And then I can also do this over on DeFi Llama. That's if you guys don't want to use Metrics Finance for whatever reason. We just type in GRT, we type in Render, we type in INJ, and you're going to get greeted with a lot of opportunities over here. The only thing I will say is you do have to take these APYs with a grain of salt over on DeFi Llama, strictly because they don't factor in ranges. You can't go in here and simulate performance with a specific range, which is why I'm going to be using Metrics Finance today. Anyways, there's other assets like Beam, there's Near, there's Aether. So we're going to type those in as well. We're just going to put in Beam, Near, Aether, just like that. And we have 12 different liquidity pools to browse through. So that is a lot less. We are already right off the bat using this tool able to narrow down the amount of liquidity pools that we have tremendously, which is amazing, right? So this tool has really been a lifesaver for us at Builder Wealth recently because right now we can't track the correlation on Discover, and that's something that we're working on implementing at Metrics Finance, but it's not here quite yet. But like from here, we can identify which liquidity pools we want to potentially deploy our capital into. We can simulate the performance. Like if we're in Ethereum to Aether right now, we'd be like, all right, what if we went in with this range? And if we're only looking at recent volume data just like that, we're still averaging out to 155% APR. What happens if Aether goes to 4 cents and then Ethereum goes to like, let's just say $2,000 or so? Okay, it's pretty correlated, barely any divergence loss. What happens if Aether goes to 4 cents and Ethereum only goes to 1,800? Okay, we got some divergence loss, but really we only need 10 days to cover it. It's going to take more than 10 days to get up here, guys. So we can map that stuff out through Metrics Finance. And that's what we should be doing with our asset accumulation portfolios, mapping things out beforehand. That's also part of the reason why we do not invest everything into liquidity pools and into stability strategies. We also have the hodls on the side, because what happens if Aether goes up to 4 cents and then after 4 cents it's 9 cents and then it's 12 cents, which by the way was its peak price. Like if it goes back to its peak price over the next 90 days or whatever, no matter how your liquidity pool strategy is structured, you're most likely going to have a lot of divergence loss here. Okay, it's just simple as that, and you're going to miss out on a lot of gains, which means it's important to have both, not just the liquidity pools, but also the hodls. So that way you witness all the appreciation in the hodls. What I like to do, I like to dive into liquidity pools with solid assets, maybe that I don't have as much exposure as I want to them quite yet, something like Tau. And then I'm earning income from those liquidity pools, earn a couple $1,000. That couple $1,000 gets converted into just Tau. It builds up my hodl bag in Tau. It's Tau that I wouldn't have in the first place. And then I shift out of Ethereum to Tau once I'm done with it because it's no longer doing a good yield, or maybe it just doesn't make sense anymore. I shift into something new, repeat the process. So I'm building up those hodl bags with liquidity pools. And obviously after I get to a couple $1,000 in income, I will eventually start to compound into liquidity pools and execute on my flywheel strategy. So as far as stability strategies go, I usually use DeFi Llama under this stablecoin pools section, simply because this is going to show me a lot of the different just stablecoin liquidity pools that I can deploy into. One of the ones that I am in is over on fluid on the Polygon network. I'm earning Paul incentives. This I have about 11,000 bucks or so in. As you can see right over here, I've earned like 200 Paul tokens so far. And in all honesty, I'm probably just going to be holding these Paul tokens, right? I'm using it as a means to build up my exposure to Paul. And I'm going to be injecting more capital here because really it is just a free 8% APR. I already have a bunch of money sitting in the bank that I've been strategically deploying into stability strategies and kind of ramping up my exposure there just because it doesn't have the market exposure. And then I have stuff that I'm testing right now with lower amounts of capital that I will ramp up pretty soon, like that Fartcoin position that's doing over a 50% APR without market exposure because the market exposure is hedged. And those types of positions I find on Metrics Finance, I transparently go directly to the dexes themselves and just look at what's doing a high APR, and I see where I can hedge that out. Can I hedge it on Radium perps? Can I hedge it over on Hyperliquid? Can I hedge it on WooFi, right? There's so many options out there. But right now, Fartcoin's doing great, right? It's producing great yield. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of yield to be made here. How can I make sure that I'm mitigating my market exposure? And, you know, if I'm diving in with 55% Fartcoin, 45% Sol, I'll go and I'll execute a short on maybe 65% Fartcoin because I'm expecting it to underperform. And what that does is that nets it out, because when my liquidity pool loses money from prices going down, my short position is actually going to make money from prices going up, basically. And it's not going to be an equal amount because there is some rebalancing to be made. You do have to rebalance your shorts. I'm not going to fully dive into that in today's video, but point is, like, earnings are going to kind of outweigh the difference as long as you are structured properly. Guys, if you need help putting a strategy in place, we can help you, whether it's an asset accumulation strategy or a stability strategy. We got your back. There's a link right below this video to talk to my team, see if it's a good fit for you, but also see if it's a good fit for us. Make sure that we're aligned on the vision. We can go from there. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's video, drop a like, subscribe, notifications turned on. I'll see you guys next one. Peace out.